So let's move into taking a look at the opening statement. It tells us what's going on in the case, what the goal is, and then also it tells us who our players are. So in this instance, Johnny Depp's lawyer is a guy named Benjamin Chu. His statement is about 20 minutes long, and then Amber Heard's attorney's statement is about 50 minutes long. We'll see who does a better job.
My name is Ben Chu.
Hi, Ben Chu.
My colleagues and I from Brown Rudnick are truly honored to represent the plaintiff in this case.
Damn.
Johnny Depp.
Wow.
Some of you may recognize Mr. Depp from seeing him portray characters such as Edward Scissorhands or Captain Jack Sparrow from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. For nearly 30 years, Mr. Depp built a reputation as one of the most talented actors in Hollywood.
Damn.
A respected artist whose name was associated with success at the box office.
Also, can I just say this? Johnny has been working in the industry in the best films with the best people for 20 or 30 years. People that are hard to work with or mean or violent or always drunk, they don't get hired for decades and decades and decades. Here's another little interesting tidbit. I posted on Twitter yesterday about this case, and a guy who was a stuntman in Aquaman 2 and has also worked with Johnny Depp replied to my tweet. He said that Johnny Depp would actually sit down with the stuntmen and eat lunch with them. Meanwhile, Amber Heard never spoke with them, and he said, treated them like dirt and acted like that they were all there just for her bidding.
Today, his name is associated with a lie.
Oh my God.
A false statement uttered by his former wife, Amber Heard, that falsely cast Mr. Depp, falsely and unfairly cast Mr. Depp as a villain, a man who would violently abuse a woman. This is a defamation case. It's a case about how devastating words can be when they are false and uttered publicly.
I'm sorry, I gotta say this, guy. If we could go back in time, I want you to put yourself in Amber's place. Imagine. Okay, look, I can honestly say I don't think Amber would have ever in her whole life written that op-ed in the Washington Post if some ghost from Christmas past came back and told her, hey, if you hit send on that, there's gonna be a photo of your feces online forever. Like, if she had a choice between publishing that and knowing that her feces was going to be online forever, I can almost guarantee you that she would have never posted this.
That's because words matter. They paint a picture in our mind based on what we have experienced and what we know, or what we think we know. And because of that, words can evoke strong emotions in the listener and cause irreparable harm to a person's reputation. And when, like Mr. Depp, your career depends upon your image and your reputation, or whether movie producers want their films associated with you, that harm can be...
Dude, honestly, how do you guys feel about this attorney on a scale of 1 to 10? I wish he was giving us a little more passion, hitting us a little harder in the courtroom, you know what I mean? It's Johnny, man. It's Johnny.
particularly devastating.
Somebody said 0.
This is a case about the impact of Amber Heard's words on Johnny Depp.
Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. I spoke up about the sexual violence that didn't really happen, and now I'm a victim again. I was a victim of Johnny Depp, and now I'm a victim of the internet, but I will never, ever, ever be a victim of my own actions.
And the op-ed was published.
She could have just gotten out of this relationship. She could
on the eve of her first major acting
She could have
role
just got out.
in the movie Aquaman. The evidence will show that's no coincidence. The evidence will show the words.
Then 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out. I had the rare... No, people believed you, dummy. I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse. No, everyone protected you, dummy. Dude, the most astounding thing about this is Amber Heard could have shut the fuck up, just divorced Johnny Depp, gotten $7 million, and everyone could have continued their careers. But oh no, she's got to be the victim and the hero. She must be.
And there are three statements that we respectfully ask each of you to focus on. Statement number one, quote, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. Statement number two, 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse. And I want to repeat that because you're going to hear that throughout the case because the timing here is critical. 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse. Statement number three, I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse.
Who protected Johnny? Because it seems like everyone cast this man aside. Basically, for a couple years, society told men that we will not believe you. That's what everyone just did in the last 5 years. And then Johnny said, fuck this. I'm standing up for myself. And then we were all like, oh, okay. I'm so proud of him for doing this. I really am.
Ms. Heard did not use Mr. Depp's name in the op-ed. She
knew what she was doing.
She didn't have to because the evidence will show that everyone in Hollywood, where Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard both have their careers, and many others outside Hollywood, knew exactly what she was talking about when she used the word 2 years ago. I became a public figure representing domestic abuse. 2 years earlier, on May 27, 2016, Ms. Heard had publicly accused Johnny Depp, her husband at the time, of domestic abuse. You will learn during the trial that Ms. Heard's actions were prompted by Mr. Depp's request for a divorce.
Oh,
I didn't even know that. But Amber's pattern of behavior shows me, it shows everybody that if you cross Amber or you do what she doesn't want you to do or you take the control away from her, she will punish you tenfold and she will try to take the power back. He asked for a divorce and this is what she did. Man.
Which drove her to concoct, to make up a story that was, at first, designed to keep him. And then, when he made it clear that finally, after all he had endured, he was done, was designed to recast herself as an abuse survivor.
Oh my God.
With Mr. Depp as the alleged abuser.
Emily and Chad just said it best. You can't divorce me. Oh, that is so Amber Heard, 100%, for sure. This is really messed up, and I'm like legit really kind of sad. Like, this is really messed up. Somebody can abuse you all to hell, tell you that they love you, and then finally when you get the strength to leave, they put the blame all on you and go tell everybody.
The evidence will show that Ms. Heard showed up with a mark on her face that mysteriously appeared 6 days after she last saw Mr. Depp. The evidence will show that her publicist and the paparazzi were there at the courthouse to document the event, to make sure that Johnny Depp's name was forever associated with the image of an innocent, battered woman.
She's looking at him. I'm gonna like cry because like I so heavily am putting myself in Johnny's shoes. I'm not gonna cry. I won't cry. I really genuinely feel like I'm about to. If I was in this courtroom with a person that abused me, I would not be able to look at them. But I know that the abuser would be staring me down.
It was a jolt. It was a shocking story, splashed across front pages across the country.
Someone said, where's Will Smith when you need him?
Had ever, in 5 decades, accused Johnny Depp of being violent with a woman.
5 decades.
No one.
How many of you guys have heard of like a narcissistic discard before? It's basically when a really like self-absorbed person uses you and uses you and uses you, and then you start standing up for yourself so you become too difficult for them to control. And so they decide that you're no longer of use to them, and they're going to discard you, and then they're going to punish you. It's just strange to me because that's the exact pattern that Amber Heard had. Johnny was going to leave her. She got mad about it and was like, I'm losing control. and now you will be punished. And then the other interesting thing about narcissistic discards is that afterwards, you can read this in any article. What do, boys? They start a smear campaign. That is the final step of the narcissist. They basically get a whole bunch of people that are on their side, make you feel isolated, make you feel small, and they start talking shit to you about you to everybody. They kind of like blacklist you.
No one had ever, in 5 decades, no one had ever accused Johnny Depp of being abusive of any kind with a woman. That's why it was such a jolt. He had been in other long-term relationships, as I said. He had 2 children. And no one had even suggested ever that he was capable of something like this. By choosing to lie about her husband for her own personal benefit, Amber Heard forever changed Mr. Depp's life and reputation.
I think we can all agree that Amber Heard benefited greatly from posting that in the Washington Post.
The evidence you will hear at this trial contradicts the story Ms. Heard presented to the world in May 2016 and again in December 2018. The evidence will show that the last time Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard saw each other before Ms. Heard showed up in court on May 27, 2016, was May 21st. And that's a very important date, and I will ask you please to remember that through the trial. So on May 21st, Mr. Depp came by the apartment that he shared with Ms. Heard in the Eastern Columbia building, or the ECB, as some people refer to it, to tell her that, to pick up his things, and to say goodbye. There is no dispute that soon after Mr. Depp ended things with Ms. Heard and left the apartment on May 21st, he got on a plane to head out on a European tour, a music tour, for months with his band, the Hollywood Vampires.
Okay.
And Ms. Heard knew that he was going off on tour and out of state
What are they about
when
to
she walked into court to get the restraining order, which she obtained ex parte. It's a Latin word, fancy word, but all it means is that Mr. Depp and his lawyer were not there.
Something else that Kate James revealed in her deposition was she said that one of the few things that Amber Heard told her about the relationship was she was really upset when Johnny would go away. When he would travel, she would get really anxious and upset. That is not something a stable, grown woman does, okay? Look, if your partner goes away for a week or 2 and it makes you anxious, it means one of a couple things. 1, you might be young. 2, he's probably cheating and you know that he's untrustworthy. Or 3, maybe you just have a whole lot of anxiety, but you also know that you should be able to handle your partner leaving, right? On the other hand, most people are like, bye, babe, I get a week to myself. See ya. She gets angry when he goes away because she can't control him. She can't watch him. She doesn't have him under her thumb anymore. So it's interesting to me that she went to file the restraining order when he was out of town again.
You will hear from the police officers who responded to a 911 call on May 21st after Mr. Depp left. The police officers will testify that they saw no injuries on Ms. Heard. Both police officers will testify that they saw no
They got the
injuries
police
on Ms. Heard.
officers to testify?
Nor did the police officers see any of the...
And here's the other thing too. Amber is so self-absorbed that I actually believe that she thinks that she could just tell people this was happening and people would believe her. Like, that's how self-absorbed she is.
property damages that you will hear Ms. Heard claims existed in the apartments that evening. You will also hear from multiple witnesses who, like the police officers, saw Ms. Heard between May 21 and May 26. Those are the crucial days between the alleged incident and the day she walked into court with her lawyer and got an ex parte order. And those witnesses will testify that they saw her without any marks, any signs of injury on her face. Of course, none of this contradicting evidence was publicly available when Ms. Heard walked into court on May 27th and got her restraining order. Instead, as you can imagine, the media storm was instantaneous.
He's doing all right, but I wish Julie was here. I just wish somebody was just straight spitting. But, maybe it's also a good thing that our attorney isn't too emotional. So it seems kind of, I don't know. I'm a little nervous. We'll see Amber's team after this.
The evidence will show that Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard eventually settled their divorce out of court. Thereafter, Ms. Heard dismissed her restraining order against Mr. Depp. And the evidence will show that 2 years later, which is why we're pointing to that reference in the op-ed, in the wake of the Me Too movement, and just before the release of Ms. Heard's role in the movie Aquaman, Ms. Heard chose to remind the world about the festering allegations, this time under the banner of a international newspaper, The Washington Post.
At Big Boss Pose, how do we know Amber also went through traumatic events that made her behave like that, just to give her the benefit of the doubt? Get out. I'm not giving Amber the benefit of the doubt today. Listen, I know that I always say that you guys are allowed to have your own opinion. I encourage individualism, but what do I also encourage? Critical thinking. I don't think you have to think too hard about this one. There's a couple people that disagree with me on this point because I'm like, Team Johnny, save Johnny. That's okay. If you really don't agree with that, we're going to have to agree to disagree, and you're just going to have to get out for this video. You just got to get out. Look, we all have trauma, and you know what? I don't know if I've ever said this before. I was raised by a hardcore narcissist. And when I was about 18, 19, 20 or so, I actually picked up some narcissistic tendencies, which they call it narcissistic wounding or narcissistic injury. It's basically when you have a long-term maybe partner or parent that's very narcissistic and they exhibit a lot of bad behavior. Sometimes you pick up that bad behavior because it worked on you. But it's been 10 years and I've grown and changed so much. We cannot say the same for Amber Heard. It seems like her behavior has only gotten worse, and it's been enabled by those around her because they thought she was successful.
Hollywood studios don't want to deal with the public backlash from hiring someone accused of abuse. Even someone with the incredible body of work and record that Mr. Depp...
I thought he was just going to say incredible body of Mr. Depp. And I was like...
A false allegation can devastate a career. And it can devastate a family. Ms. Heard's false allegations had a significant impact on Mr. Depp's family and his ability to work in the profession he loved and loved to bring joy to everyone. Ultimately, this trial is about clearing Mr. Depp's name of a terrible and false allegation.
Yes.
We ask you in the next several weeks.
God, I hope he wins. I really do.
Carefully consider the evidence. Assess the reliability and credibility of that evidence, and to make your own determination about what actually happened between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard.
Good to see you all again, and thank you again very much.
Shut up. Sorry. Really showing my bias today.
Hyperbole and the personal attacks, and he was right. The evidence in this case, simply put, is overwhelming and compelling. In the 6 weeks...
You know what? Okay, I'm a little... Okay, I said a little biased. I'm biased, but if I was in the jury and I was listening to a court case on a relationship, most of us have been in a relationship, a long-term one, or maybe even a toxic one. If you showed up talking about a relationship and said, the evidence, I would just want to disregard you immediately, because all of us know in relationships, it's emotional, it's personal. There's no evidence. Evidence? That just sounds like such a gross word to use here. It would put me on edge as a jury member.
We're going to try to show you as much as we possibly can. There are many, many, many photographs. Now, you heard Ms. Vasquez try to say, oh, you can't trust those, it's not the originals. She's got that wrong. It's not from the original devices. And we will have an IT expert who will testify that all of these are legitimate, authentic photographs. Not only that, but Ms. Heard
Authentic, legitimate photographs? Okay, well, if people said that she faked the bruises with makeup, I don't know how true that is. Actually, no, fuck that. I'm taking hard stances on stuff, man. We just watched her deposition. It went from Johnny had me up against the wall and he was hitting me and I was screaming. We now know that that did not happen. What bruises, Amber? So when they say, oh, the photos are real and legitimate, it's like, yeah, the photo is real, but is the bruise real? Also, did you guys see that clip where they were saying that Amber used some kind of cream that made her instantly get rid of the bruises? Let me ask you this. Have y'all ever heard of a cream that instantly gets rid of bruises? We would be using that shit all day. Hey, bruises all up and down my leg. Y'all know them girls that just, they don't even know where their body is and they just got random bruises on them all day. What cream? What is this miracle potion that we've never heard of?
They're all very legitimate photographs, and listen carefully to the evidence from the experts and you will find every single piece is authenticated and is true. And they show bruises, and they show cut lips. They show hair pulled out of her hair.
But hair
They
pulled out?
They show
Hey! You can show us pictures of that all day, but... Do you guys really believe that Johnny Depp cut her lips and pulled her hair out? It, almost hurts me to question somebody's account of abuse, but it must be done. It absolutely must be done. This is a really polarizing case for me. And if you guys saw the first video where I was talking through her ex-assistant, I said at first that this was a toxic relationship and I didn't want to take too many sides on the he said, she said thing, but I have to take a hard stance on this. I really do. And it sounds like Amber Heard lied about her relationship with Johnny for her own benefit. And suddenly we're not talking about all the lies in the deposition and everything's de-escalated, right? Are we just supposed to forget how heinous her accusations were?
They showed two black eyes when he headbutted her. Those are all going to be there. We also are going to show you a video, and I'll talk about the time frame of it. Ms. Heard took that on her iPad. And it was one day when she was in the kitchen with Mr. Depp. And it was February 10th, 2016. And he's on a tear. And he's going around, he's yelling at her and being abusive to her, and he's slamming the kitchen cupboards, and they're glass. And you can hear them rattling, and you can hear them breaking. Then he goes over with a big glass of wine, and he has a huge bottle of wine, and he pours more in there. And then she says, "Did you drink all of that?" And then he sees that she's videotaping him, and bam.
Oh, she's videotaping it. Yo, dude, this is so stupid. This is so dumb. Imagine that you're in a male or female, okay? Imagine you're in a toxic relationship with somebody and then you finally get out. You finally tell them, I can't do this anymore. They're threatening suicide because that's what Amber Heard did a whole lot. They're threatening suicide, saying that they can't live without you, and you finally get the balls to leave. And then suddenly, a couple days later, this is all over the news. Big victim. Exclusive photo. A friend of Heard's took this photo, which shows injuries allegedly inflicted by Johnny Depp last December. What injuries? What injury? If anything, she just looks sad. It's like they asked her to pose like an abused wife. But what? Where? Holy fuck, where?
Ben told you about the May 2014 Boston plane incident, we call it, where he kicked her, where he was so drunk and he blacked out. Well, Amber audio taped him when he went to the back of the plane and passed out and was moaning loudly. You will hear that. You will also hear some other audio tapes that are very significant. One of them in Australia at the end of the 3-day hostage situation. You will hear.
Please tell me we got black folk on the jury. Please tell me.
Heard's iPhone. She was never allowed to have a password. By the way, he would never let her do that.
I'm not even listening to this lady.
But he must have inadvertently turned it on. There's 5 hours of audio tape. It's during the cleanup of all the broken glass and the liquor and the urine and the blood stains and everything else in that house. And that you can hear them say,
that Amber
she's stone cold sober. You will hear all of that. It's very
Yeah, I'm sure Amber abused him sober. I have no doubt. It's not about who's drunk and who's not. Being drunk doesn't automatically cite abuse.
What this is going to tell you is the story of a very different Johnny Depp. It's one who is always, well, I can't say always, because he has the charismatic side that Amber fell in love with. But he has an enormous amount of rage. You will see the medical records and hear from the psychiatrist that talked to him for a while in 2014, where he admits that he has rage, that he's like a demon, that he views his wife.
You are way too biased. This is not a neutral news source. This is my channel where I have my opinions. So no, I'm not way too biased. This is my channel and this is my opinion.
Amber, like his mother and his sister that he hates. That's what you will see. You will see that. And it'll be fueled by the alcohol and the drugs. Ben told you a little bit about that. You're going to see a list of his prescription drugs that his concierge doctor and team, who charge him $100,000 a month and have since 2014, and they are still his concierge doctors. That's the list of the medications he takes in one day that they prescribe. That doesn't include the cocaine.
60.
It doesn't include the ecstasy, the MDMA, the mushrooms, and all of the others. It's during these rages that Mr. Depp engaged in verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse of Amber.
Oh,
Let me introduce you to Amber.
Whoa. You know, it's wild to me that Amber and her team make these egregious, grandiose claims, and then they just kind of don't talk about them again. This is the first time that I'm hearing about a sexual? Where was that in the deposition? Where was it? What do you do? Oh, my God.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Amber. She's 35 years old. She's from Austin, Texas. She grew up outside of Austin,
and she's
Texas.
pure evil.
She has a daughter, Una, who turned 1 last week. Amber grew up in an area. Her father was a construction worker, primarily a painter, but he would break horses as part-time.
Okay.
Amber rode horses with her father. She tried to work with him to help him break the horses. She remembers having a broken arm at least 4 times, being in casts during that time. But there were some things she learned from breaking those horses.
I feel like they tried to say that she was into horses and she had a ranch or something because this is supposed to make her really nice. Like, Amber cares about animals. Listen, horse girls are ambiguous. That's why they're horse girls. We never know what direction they're gonna go, okay? They're either the nicest girl ever or they got some quirks. Horse girl means absolutely nothing. Way too ambiguous. Can't take that.
That was very significant. Her father taught her she couldn't show fear, she couldn't show pain, and she couldn't show emotion. That's how she could break those horses. It's significant for you to know that so you can understand how Amber could have remained in this relationship with Mr. Depp for as long as she could, and the dynamics of some of the abuse you're going to hear about, because that's what would be her instinct, is to stand up and not let him show that he's caused the pain, that he's caused the fear, that he's caused the humiliation. You'll hear about a long line of jobs that Amber started from back at age 12.
Amber was hitting them horses. That's it. I don't trust this lady as far as I can throw her.
She took all kinds of miscellaneous jobs, lifeguards, everything else,
act like she was just
trying
over
to
here
improve herself.
brushing the horses and being nice.
Who had a great break. What happened was she got recognized by a Hollywood agent who expressed some interest in her. She took her $180 that she'd saved up and she went to LA. That's all she had to her name.
I think this is a bad opening statement because the information that slowly comes out in this case, and we know some of it now, directly refutes this narrative that Amber Heard was a nice person. They're trying to paint her as this sweet horse girl that was always hanging out with her dad. And one day, because she was so beautiful, she got approached by a Hollywood casting director. You know, it's interesting because Amber's rise to fame seems more calculated than a mysterious coincidence because she's so pretty and nice. As the case continues, we learn horrible aspects of Amber Heard's behavior, and it directly contrasts this entire statement.
So she would go on buses, and she'd go up to six different auditions in one day. She'd have a map, and she'd have the bus, and then she would just go around. She had a big sweater, so she could change underneath it to whatever the role was. She was taking one-liners. She was taking extras.
Yeah, because that's all she could get.
Anything she could to make money to survive. Then when Whitney graduated from high school, she brought her out to LA, and put a roof over her house and put her through community college. She took care of her
She put her through community college, huh?
family with what she made. When she met Johnny Depp,
I put myself through community
he hired her
college.
for-
Dude, her sister comes up and is like, Amber, I really want to go to USC. No! Community college. Only community college. But Amber, you have so much money. No!
But sadly, the monster came in the way. And that monster would come out when he was drinking and when he would take the drugs.
You know what the most messed up thing you can do to one of the most messed up things you can do to a person is accuse them of doing something that they didn't do while they were drunk, and then when they're sober, convincing them that they did it. Especially if you're dealing with a person that is soft-hearted and tends to blame themselves for different things. And that's what I think Amber did. When you look at all of these articles, they basically say, like, Johnny Depp didn't remember his violent outrages. Johnny didn't remember. Yeah, it sounds to me like it probably didn't really happen the way Amber described it. And the next morning when he got sober, she would say, Johnny, you did this and you did this and you became a monster last night. And he goes, oh my God, did I?
Amber will never forget the first event of abuse. She was sitting in his house in Sweetser on the sofa, and he was across from her. And they were talking about a tattoo that he had that had Winona Ryder forever. He had altered that to Wine Forever after he broke up with Winona Ryder. Just an aside, he had Slim, which was his nickname for Amber. When they broke up, he turned it to Scum. But in any event, he had that on there. And Amber thought he was making a joke when he was talking about it. And she laughed. And he up and slapped her. Now you see the rings that Mr. Depp has on him. It hurts when he slaps. And she was stunned. She had no idea what to think. And she kind of laughed thinking, well, maybe that was a joke. What just happened?
Okay.
And he slapped her again.
Okay.
And just looked. And then he hit her again, and this time it knocked her right off the sofa.
Stop. Okay. This is what Amber said happened. She said that she was sitting on the couch and Johnny had all of his rings on. Also, let's just go back and look at his face. She said, I was sitting on the couch and Johnny walked up to me with all of his big, thick rings. He slapped me. I was so shocked. I didn't know what to do. And while I sat there shocked, he slapped me again. And I didn't know what to do. And then he slapped me again. It's like she makes these big, bold claims, and then when they get disproven, they just don't want to talk about it again.
To the ground. And she remembers her face was in this dirty, filthy carpet. That's what she remembers and fixated on, the dirty carpet. And she's thinking, oh my God, I have to leave. I have to leave. But I love him. Then Johnny came off the sofa, got on his knees, started crying, told her he was very, very sorry that he had done this. It would never happen again. And he said some very significant words. I thought I had put the monster away for good.
Acting like he's got some Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde over
here. She
here.
went out to her car, her Mustang, and she remembers that it was cold. And she sat in the car for the longest time, and she remembers watching her breath.
Why is nobody talking about... Why is nobody talking about how Amber's story keeps changing? The story in the deposition was kind of one thing, and now the story in this opening statement is a little bit different, and now it's just all different. I'm gonna cry, guys. Like, I hate injustice. It makes me so sad. It makes me so sad. I've said this before, that there's the subset of people that maybe as a child, teenager, or an adult experienced some type of injustice or multiple forms of injustice, and there was nothing that they can do. That breeds a person like me that loves to see justice and is hurt by injustice. And this is such an injustice was done to Johnny Depp. Amber should have just taken the money and ended the relationship. There was no reason to do all of this. There was no reason.
But Amber made the mistake that millions before her and millions after her have, who are victims of domestic abuse. She chose to stay and try to fix the problem and thinking that she could do that.
The
So
big
she
thing
stayed.
here is that
Now,
she
Amber
paints herself
was
as a
also-
victim,
she
but
grew up
she's
in
a
an abusive
participant.
family. Her father abused her mother, and sometimes she and Whitney. So she had that cycle in there, just as you've heard that Johnny had that cycle in his house. And so what's the normal to them is a little bit more difficult than some of us can understand. You will hear expert witness testimony about the cycles of violence and what happens with these people and how they react and all the dynamics of thinking they can fix them. Then
Can't Account says, I'm begging you to learn about reactive abuse. You guys can definitely Google the phrase, but we explained it a little bit before, where it's kind of that narcissistic injury thing where one person starts to replicate someone else's method of dealing with emotions just because we're exposed to it for so long. And imagine somebody pressing your buttons over and over and over and over and over again, and you finally react, and then they're like, there it is, you're crazy. Oh my God, I know that's happened to you guys before, right? Where somebody's pushing all your buttons, and then you finally react, and then they're like, unstable, crazy, here she is, right there. I told you guys all along, abusive, abuser.
she went to Al-Anon meetings. She went to therapists.
Al-Anon? That
She tried
sounds
to
like
do
a
couples therapy. You'll hear about
group.
their tape recording sessions to try to resolve fights or de-escalate them so he wouldn't get mad at her for anything. But you'll hear that he gets mad at her for all kinds of things. He didn't want her to work. Here she's a budding actor who wants to be out there and succeed, and he doesn't want her to take roles. He starts controlling what she wears. He starts looking at her lines when she tries out for places. He nixes any
Do you guys think Amber Heard dating Johnny Depp gave her a lot of credibility in the industry? And I think that put her up for more roles than she was qualified for. Just because people thought, oh, well, if Johnny trusts her, let's give her a shot. I don't think Amber ever would have got any of these big roles if it wasn't for her dating like Johnny Depp. I mean, he could just call up a casting director and put his name on it, you know?
romance scenes, sex scenes. He gets mad and accuses her of sleeping with every single one of her co-stars. It became a cycle of that, a control as well, emotional abuse as you go. But what's also significant in that is the property damage. And that's a hard
Wait, here's another one. Lily Clifford said, BOZE, please look up the article. Amber Heard's lawyer focuses on Johnny Depp's text, let's burn Amber. I just heard about this. To fuck? Let me clarify for you guys. So there's actually a text message where Johnny Depp says, I hope that Amber Heard's rotting corpse is rotting in the back of a Honda Civic. Let me be very clear. I do not give a fuck about that statement or any of these texts about her corpse or anything of that nature. Do you know how many people have revenge fantasies against their abusers? When somebody stays silent about the abuse that they've encountered for a long time and then they go say things to other people to let it out because they could never say it, it's normal. It's normal. It happens all the time. I am not surprised by that reaction. And goddamn, it's just a couple of text messages where he's like, God, I hope she dies. He fucking hated her. What do you expect? What would you rather? Johnny Depp send a couple text messages to Paul Bettany about how mad he is about what happened to him? Or you support Amber Heard going on record trying to destroy his reputation over a bad breakup? Come on, you're not dwelling on those texts, are you? Really?
In Australia, when you heard Ben talk about Australia, he wrote the third day as Amber comes out after she's barricaded herself and gone through a lot, and I'll back up on that in a minute. She comes out, he's got mashed potatoes spread across the top.
Sorry, I don't know, I'd be getting mad.
He's written along the wall of the staircase.
Wait, who's that mash? Hold on, what is this?
She comes out, he's got mashed potatoes spread across the top. He's written along the wall of the staircase going down all kinds of nasty things about her. And Billy Bob Thornton, the last one she was in a co-star with.
What is she talking about?
Fucking ambition and all kinds of things like that. And then he's written on the lampshades downstairs. And then he's got more on
Mashed
the mirrors.
potatoes and lampshades.
And then on top of it, you've got all the.
Oh no, Johnny's writing? He's scribbling on stuff? He's getting drunk and he's scribbling on stuff? I'd rather him scribble on the lampshade than hit somebody. Keep on doodling.
So let's go back. The first event that I told you about was 2011. And how do we know that it was in 2011? Because Amber was going to her therapist, Bonnie Jacobs. And Bonnie Jacobs has therapy notes of herself.
Bonnie Jacobs sounds like one of those attorneys that you see on a billboard that says she can get you out of your traffic ticket for $5,000. Call Bonnie Jacobs.
Sessions with Amber. And in those therapy notes, she chronicles the first time that Amber tells her that Johnny hit her. And it goes through into 2012, 2013, 2014. And you will see, and you will hear from Bonnie Jacobs, her saying, you know, this is a cycle of violence. This is a cycle of abuse. You can't enable him. You need to stand up for yourself. Amber will testify about how Johnny would
Amber's
get
gonna
so
testify?
drugged out that he would vomit all over himself and worse, lose control of his bowels. She would clean him up. And you'll see Bonnie Jacobs in these notes saying, don't do that. You're enabling him. Don't do it. Leave him there.
I'm looking at this. This high-profile trial includes James Franco, Elon Musk, and Ellen Barkin as witnesses on behalf of Amber. James Franco and Elon Musk, you could not get two people that the public distrusts more than known sex addict and talks to teens James Franco and completely unstable Elon Musk, who was previously in a relationship with Amber Heard and also paid some of her outstanding balance to the Children's Hospital. I mean, do I want to see Elon Musk take the stand? Absolutely. Do I want to see James Franco take the stand? Absolutely. Will I be roasting them? Absolutely. Meanwhile, Paul Bettany will be testifying on behalf of Johnny Depp. Do you guys know who Paul Bettany is? Paul Bettany is so trusted by so many people. Let me find like an old picture of Paul so you know who he is. I know some of you guys don't recognize Paul Bettany, but dude, Paul Bettany is like, I think he's a pretty, like, never had a scandal in the industry, like never, like,
That he was just sitting there calmly, and she was haranguing him. So he took a shot glass of vodka, and when he did that, she got mad, took the bottle of vodka, was 8 to 10 feet, about where I am from you, and hurled it at him, and it happened to just take off the bottom part of his finger. And then he says she came and burned a hole in his cheek.
I heard that.
The testimony is going to be that he self-mutilated on a number of occasions. and
No,
burned.
I'm done. Fuck Amber's team. Are you kidding me? She put a cigarette out in his face. I think there was correct me if I'm wrong, I think there was a witness for that, and it comes out later. Amber Heard put a cigarette out in Johnny Depp's face, and now they're accusing him of self-mutilating himself. I am done. I'm done with this opening statement. Super done. We're not doing it. Absolutely not. She has been banished into the void. There's still 40 minutes left. So if you feel like wasting your time, I'll link the video in chat. And that's all. Look, that's not doing it.